Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know by now I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Well, I recently purchased another camera. I'm always buying cameras, I love cameras, and one I purchased is the Fujifilm X-A7, and here it is. Now this is a great little camera. It's a very compact APS-C X mount camera, so you can interchange lenses. It's got a 24 megapixel CMOS sensor in it, a Fuji CMOS sensor, so we all know it's going to produce really good results. I've got fitted to it quite an old lens actually. It's the old 16-50 kit lens. I think Fuji still make it, but I fitted it to it because I wanted to see how good this camera is with, in inverted commas, a cheap lens. And kit lenses are usually pretty good value. This is a plastic fantastic lens. The whole camera body is sort of plasticky, but there's no weight to it. Very, very lightweight. And I wanted it as a companion really for my Fuji XS10. I love my XS10. It's actually one of my favorite cameras. The handling is fantastic. It's got this really nice grip, and I love the handling of it. And normally I would fit to it either me 14mm XF lens, XF 14mm, or the 35mm XF lens. Prime lenses, manual aperture control ring and what have you. I wanted another compact camera if I'm going out and about, one to shove in my bag, and certainly one I can give to my fiancée Mandy for taking photographs. She's not a techie person, so I can stick it in programmed automatic. It's got the PASM dial on the top, as you can see there. I stick it in programmed automatic and let the camera do the thinking. Mandy likes that. She just likes to compose the image, take the photograph. Doesn't understand shutter speeds, apertures and all the rest of it. ISO, doesn't need to. So I select auto ISO and jobs are good un. It's got a couple of functions buttons on the top. I've reassigned this function button on the top here. And you've got a power on off switch, hot shoe, and a built-in flash which is activated by a little switch on the side. On the side here there's a switch, flick that and the flash comes up, and you can bounce it. You can bounce it off a low ceiling, or even if you've got a piece of white card you can bounce it off that so you get a more diffused light if you are using its built-in flash. What it has got is this fantastic 16:9 3.5 inch screen, and if we open it up you can see there, and that is excellent. It's one of the cameras with the biggest screens I've ever seen. It's a really nice screen. Works great in daylight. In fact, this works better in daylight than what my new ZV-E10 does, my Sony ZV-E10, which is this camera here. And again, I am loving the ZV-E10. I am going to actually do a comparison video between the X-A7, this one here, and the ZV-E10, because they're both very similar, to be honest, although the X-A7 is certainly lacking features that the ZV-E10 has, but it's a lot cheaper. And this camera really is designed for novices. I actually think it is designed for novices. Maybe if you're coming up from a smartphone, you're used to using a screen as opposed to a viewfinder, because what this camera lacks is a viewfinder, just the same as the ZV-E10. You're completely reliant on the screen on the back of a camera, but that's absolutely fine in most cases, well, in pretty much every case, because it's a good quality bright screen. You've got no problems with being able to see what you're taking photographs of with this screen. And the sharpness that this sensor creates, it's a 24 megapixel sensor, and it creates really nice sharp images. And what I like as well, it's easy getting to your different functions. The ZV-E10 not quite so much, but I'm going to talk about that in a different video. It isn't laboured with, it isn't, got that many function buttons, but it's very much reliant on the touchscreen because it is fully touchscreen enabled. So you can go to your menus and you can choose, what functions you want via the touchscreen itself. So you can make all the adjustments you need via the touchscreen. So you don't really need that many function buttons. I'm more of a function button person than I am a touchscreen person, but you know, when I give it to Mandy and put it in programmed auto, just set it to a programmed auto. Mandy don't muck around with a touch screen. She just literally does take the photograph, kind of hope for the best. And when you look at the results, hoping for the best really does work with this camera. Although I tend to use it in either aperture priority or shutter priority. So now in aperture priority, and now I can adjust the apertures using the master control wheel here, and that will turn your apertures up and down. Or if you have an XF lens, it's got aperture dial actually on the lens itself, so you would use the aperture dial on the lens like these XF lenses here. You can switch it to the A mode and then use the control wheel on the camera. That's fine and dandy, that's not a problem. And it's also got your control dial on the front here. So what I got the front dial set up for adjusting the aperture. So this front wheel here will adjust the aperture, and I've got the back one for exposure compensation. And I do that with almost all the cameras that I own, because to me that's quick and easy, and they're both fall to your hand really easy. And a camera that's this compact, to have two control dials on the camera, I think is phenomenal. I really do think that is really clever. It's a shame that the ZV-E10 doesn't have that particular function, but that's great. Likewise, if you're in shutter priority, so let's go back to shutter priority. So we're now in shutter priority. The front dial will control the shutter speed, so you can just turn that and the shutter speed will go up and down, and then you can turn that wheel and the exposure compensation will kick in, which is great. And I've got this function button on the top here pre-assigned for ISO, so I can set it to auto ISO, manual ISO, whatever. Now, this camera has no in-body image stabilization, so you're reliant on the stabilization that's in the lenses. Unlike the X-A7, which is a more expensive camera, it's more of a pro camera, but as I say, the X-A7 is reliant on the image stabilization in the lens. That in itself is fine. All I would say is if you are using lenses that doesn't have the image stabilization, just select a slightly faster shutter speed and you'll be completely fine. So it is lacking function buttons. You can see on the back here there is pretty much no function buttons on the back, although you can adjust your focus point by pushing in this focus selector switch, and then you can select your focus point, you know, wherever you want it to be. But it is touchscreen, so you can just touch the screen and that will select your focus point. And again, that's what I tend to do. You know, just do that, very quick and easy. Now, with the fact that it has got no image stabilization, you just have to be a little bit careful, because you can't hold it up to your eye, so you're holding it out here. So you might want to select a slightly faster shutter speed to make sure you don't get any blurred images. But you know, great 16:9 screen, brilliant for vlogging because it is the right aspect ratio for video. And I think that's why Fuji have designed it this way. So you can flip it out and you've got, you know, a great vlogging setup. It's a really nice big screen. It's my favourite screen actually of all the cameras that I own, because it's big and I haven't got the best of eyesight, so you know, the bigger the screen the better, and that really is nice for vlogging. It's perfect. I will do a vlogging test so you can actually see how good this camera is for vlogging. It's got phase detect autofocus as well as contrast detect autofocus points, and that is awesome. So it does pick out the eye. It's got eye and face detect, autofocus detect. You are restricted if you're shooting in 4K to 10 minutes though. Again, for vloggers, that's not really a big deal. You can get around that because most vloggers are not vlogging for, you know, constantly, so 10 minutes should actually be fine. The video quality is awesome. It's got all the codecs you're going to need for video. You know, it's very easy to film video with this camera. So yeah, a great little compact camera. Now it takes the same W126 batteries as what virtually all, well, most of the Fujis take. a little bit of a shame. They don't last forever. They're not the greatest of batteries, but they're quite compact, very common to get. I mean, this is a third-party battery, and they work absolutely fine. But I find they last quite a long time. One SD card slot, which is located where the battery compartment is. Not my favourite of positions, as with most cameras like this. It's annoying when it's on a tripod or on a grip, because a tripod mount is right close to the door opener. So if you have got it on a grip or a tripod, to change the SD card or the battery, you're going to have to take it off the grip or the tripod, and I find that a bit annoying. With the Sony A7C, admittedly that's a full frame camera and a lot more expensive, they've put the SD card slot on the side of the camera, which you can't even see what I'm doing there, on the side of the camera, which makes a lot more sense. But you know, hey ho, it's in the bottom, it's in the bottom. Now, as far as connections are concerned, it's got your HDMI and it's got USB-C. I think it's USB-C connection on the side there, and you can charge it via USB-C. I use external chargers at the studio here, so I plug the battery straight into an external charger. But it is nice that you can charge this if you're out and about. You don't need to have a you know, mains power supply. HDMI out. I mean, on this side you've got your microphone input. It is annoyingly, I annoy it when Fuji do this, it is a 2.5mm mic jack, not 3.5mm, which is a shame, but you can, it does come with the right adapter to be able to plug a microphone into there, and that is great. No headphone jack, so you can't monitor the audio with headphones, but you can see your audio levels because it has got a kind of manual audio control. But again, for vlogging, you probably don't need that, you know. Pretty well designed from that point of view. The only thing I don't like about the articulating screen is for taking photographs, because I find it awkward when I'm doing low angle shots or even high angle shots. I just feel I'm going to break the screen. I prefer the tilty-wilty screens on cameras for photography, but I prefer the articulating screens for video because I think they're great for video. Almost to the extent of essential. I don't think I would want to use the cameras now where they don't articulate, because you're forever having to fit external monitors. I mean, my A7Cs have got the articulating screen and they're great, so has my ZV-1s. Now, the weight of this camera is really, really light, and I put in the video what the weight of this camera is. There's nothing to it. As I say, it's pretty much mainly plastic, but it feels good though. It doesn't feel cheaply made, you know, and the internals are really good. It's got a really good autofocus algorithm. It's got great sensor and great image quality. I'll go through some of the images here. It does take, for me, a little bit of getting used to the fact there is no viewfinder, but if you're coming from a mobile phone, a smartphone, well, you haven't got a viewfinder on those anyway, so it's no big deal. It's just because I'm used to using the viewfinder. I think that's what it basically boils down to. As far as video quality, it's got the 4K codecs, the 1080 codecs. I think this is just not quite wide enough for vlogging. I mean, it's okay, but it's not, you know, it's not great, but that's okay. You can get away with that. Actually, that's not too bad at all, really. You can get away with that, no problem. So here we go, a short vlogging test using the Fujifilm X-A7. I'm using an external microphone because I've done this test a little earlier and the wind noise was atrocious using the internal mic. Listen to it here. You can still use the PASM dial for selecting either programmed video or aperture priority in video or shutter priority. I've got it in shutter priority, which makes sense. I've got it set to 1/50th of a second. I've got it on face detect, and so here we go. That was hopeless. So I've plugged in a Rode Video Micro into the shoe and into the mic socket. I've had to use an adapter cable simply because it's a 2.5mm jack on the Fujifilm X-A7 as opposed to the standard 3.5mm jack. But once you've got the adapter, then you're fine. I actually lost the one that came with the camera, so I had to buy another one from Amazon. There you go. Now, the screen on the X-A7 for vlogging is fantastic because it's that big 3.5-inch 16:9 screen, and I've got set up a bar that goes across. It's the tells you what the horizon is, and it turns green when you've got the horizon level. And it's really handy to keep the, you know, the horizon where you want it to be. You don't want it to be wonky like that, you know. So it really does help. It's a great vlogging camera, nice and comfortable to hold, mainly because the grip is lovely, and I'm not knocking any buttons. I find with some of the cameras, using the grip on the camera, you can knock other buttons, but I'm not with this one. It's really, really good. I'm using the kit lens, the 16 to 50 kit lens. It's an older Fuji kit lens, but it's working fine. And I'm using the optical steady shot that's in the lens. So, you know, it should be reasonably steady. I see the autofocus is working, face detect is working, because the green square is around my face and the little box on the eye. So the autofocus should be fine, face detect should be fine as well. Now I've got it in shutter priority. Now the interesting thing with this camera, it has got a PASM dial, but the video mode isn't on the PASM dial. You have to go into the mode menu and then go down, and right at the very bottom you'll find movie mode. That's kind of useful in some respects, because it means you can use a PASM dial to either set programmed auto, shutter priority or aperture priority while you're in video. Obviously I've got it on shutter priority to 1/50th of a second. I don't want it in aperture priority, but it's kind of useful that you can set that if you do want to. And I say, because this camera is so light, it's not painful holding this for any length of time doing vlogging, although there is a maximum of 10 minutes in 4K, and that's completely fine for vlogging. So there we go, there's a quick vlogging test using the Fujifilm X-A7. So yeah, there we go. So let's go through a quick look at some of these images, just so you can see what the image quality is of the X-A7. As I say, it is a companion from my point of view to the XS10. So when I'm going out and about, I've got two cameras I can put in my bag, a couple of lenses, interchangeable, and you know, jobs are good. I'm not really sure what else I can say about this camera, because there isn't really great deal to it. It is nice that it has got the focus points on the, you know, the focus adjuster on the back here, so you can it's come up with a message now, isn't it? Protected card. Okay, so I've got an SD card in there which I've flipped the switch over, but hey ho. But it's great that you can just click this button in and you can move your focus points across, you know, to wherever you want. As I said earlier, it's brilliant. Yeah, nifty little camera. Now, as far as image quality is concerned, which is, you know, the main thing you buy a camera for is really to get really good image quality and to not have to, you know, fluff around with settings too much. It's got your controls for your manual settings. As I say, the control dials on the front of the camera and on the back. So you can do that, or you can do like I do when I pass it over to Mandy, put it in program mode. What's nice about this one in program mode, with the XT30 and the XT3, there's a little switch where you can, the XT30 and the XT20, where you can switch it to auto, flip the switch, switch it to auto. But Fuji, in their wisdom, disable the RAW mode. Now, I can kind of understand why, because if you're putting it in automatic, why would you want raw images? Well, I like raw images. If I'm handing the camera to somebody else, I still want to be able to edit the photos. What they've done with the X-A7, which is lovely, I can hand this to Mandy in P mode, programmed auto mode, but it'll still take raw images with it. That's great. I'm so glad Fuji, maybe they've been listening to people, or maybe they just realised that why would we stop it from taking raw images? So if you do want to use programmed auto, you will still get raw images if that's what your desire is. Now, I've loaded a few samples here into Capture One. I use Capture One a lot. I still use Lightroom, and I use various other photo editing software. But if you do want to use Capture One, there'll be a link in the video in the description, where you can download a trial version of Capture One and have a play with it. It's a really nice bit of software. If you do decide you want to buy it, then or subscribe to it, you can get 10% off your purchase price by using the code AVP10, and you get 10% off your purchase price, whether it be the subscription or whether it be the purchase model. And I'd highly recommend you download it. It's a great bit of software. I have so much pleasure by using this software. So, you know, that's why I say I love the images that come off the X-A7. And because the screen is nice and bright, it's not really an issue that there isn't a viewfinder. You know, it hasn't got animal eye detectors like the Sonys have got per se, but because you can very quickly move your focus point, either by just touching the screen, as I showed you earlier, or by using the control wheel on the back here for moving your focus point, you can fairly quickly get it over the animal's eye, or, you know, as close as you can. And, you know, look how tag sharp these images are of little Sammy. They're lovely. And, you know, and that is just purely by moving. I mean, look at that. Wow, it's gorgeous. And that is purely just by moving the focus point across to where you want it. And again, another tag sharp images. Your best bet is to see them on my Flickr page. I will leave a link in the description to where you can find these images on my Flickr page. They're higher quality than what you'll find on YouTube, and you can look at them in a lot more detail than what you can on my YouTube video. So that's what I would recommend you do. But again, the clarity is gorgeous. So, you know, because Fuji sensors are so good, I really do believe that Fuji have got a you know, really nice little camera here. I actually don't think it's as successful as maybe it should be. And the only reason I say that is because you don't hear much said about the X-A7. You hear a lot said about the X-T3, X-T4, the XS10, but not so much about the X-A7. And I think the X-A7 stands up to, you know, scrutiny. I mean, I've got other images of the X-A7 when we went to Cirencester. So the sensor can handle low light. You don't get noise in the shadows. And again, just programmed automatic. There was no mucking around with getting, you know, the right settings. Everything is just set to programmed auto. So you get a really nice sharp image. And the colours are gorgeous. So yeah, I can always highly recommend Fuji cameras. I'm a big fan for photos of Fuji cameras. I tend not to use my Fujis for videos, and that isn't because of the image quality whatsoever. It's because of the functionality. I like the functionality of the Sonys. I've got so used to the fact there's no record limit. I can power them via USB-C, and the autofocus is phenomenal on the Sonys. So I kind of rely on my Sonys for video, but I love taking the Fujis out for stills and video clips. With the X-A7, I wouldn't use that in the studio at all because of the video record limit. But for vlogging, I would. The fact there is no headphone jack, well, you know, you live with that. Most cameras nowadays don't have headphone jacks. Although the new Sony ZV-E10, which is one here, is being branded as a vlogging camera, that has got a headphone jack. But it hasn't got anywhere near such a nice screen that the X-A7 has got. It's got such a nice screen on that camera. So there we go. That's a quick overview. I will be doing more videos about the X-A7 because I'm going to be taking it out and about, giving it to Mandy more to use. But I think it's just such a lightweight camera, even with this kit lens. It's quite a big kit lens because it's an old kit lens. These images are straight out of camera. I haven't edited them, I haven't done anything with them. So yeah, this camera comes highly recommended from me. And the fact that it's APS-C, you're going to get better results in low light than what you would do with Micro Four Thirds. Well, I still use Micro Four Thirds, and I'm not knocking Micro Four Thirds. It's a good format. So yeah, that's the Fuji X-A7. Shame with where the tripod mount is. There is space, but they could have put it more central. There must be a logical reason why they haven't done that. But the fact it's right close to the flap for getting the batteries and SD cards out is annoying, but there we go. So I hope you found that useful. So if you did, please subscribe to my channel. It helps me grow the channel. Really appreciate people subscribing, and like the video if you like this video and found it useful. That really does help as well. And make comments, that helps. I do read all the comments. I don't necessarily reply to everyone, but I certainly do read every single comment that I get, and that is great. So there we go. I'm certainly doing more videos about the X-A7, the ZV-E10, and pretty much most things related to video and photography. One of my other favourite lenses in the Fuji range, as we're on about Fuji, is this really nice 35mm XF 35mm lens. This is one of my favourite lenses actually. Lovely sharp lens. And again, that is no weight to that whatsoever. That goes together with the X-A7 so nicely. Let's just put that on so you can see, you know, the balance of that is just so good. That just works so well. And it is a bit heavier because it's an XF lens, but that has got, you see, the manual, you know, your aperture control around the lens. So you don't need to use the control wheel on the top here. With Fuji, there's quite a way, you know, there's quite a few ways of adjusting your exposure with Fuji cameras. And the fact that I've pre-assigned the top button here, this function button here, for adjusting your ISO, I think is great. So yeah, very nice camera and a nice system. The X range of systems, the X cameras I think are fantastic. So there we go. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the channel and hit the like button, as I said earlier, if you did find this video useful. Cheers for now. Bye.